The Resident Evil 4 Remake is out now, and it's got a lot going on. On more than a few occasions, it can be quite a challenging experience. Don't worry though, because we've got you covered. Here we'll be going over a few tips and tricks that you should keep in mind while playing the game to make the experience a bit smoother for you. Selling weapons. Resident Evil 4 Remake has a sizable roster of weapons that you gain access to throughout its runtime, which means the weapons you get early will not be the ones you'll be using later on, once more powerful variants become available. Something that you should make sure of, however, is that you don't hoard weapons. So, for instance, once you buy a more powerful shotgun from the merchant, rather than hanging on to your older one, you should sell it. It's very much recommended, in fact, because otherwise you'll often find yourself strapped for cash. Starter weapons. Given how costly weapon upgrades tend to be in Resident Evil 4 Remake, and, as mentioned previously, the fact that you're very unlikely to stick with the weapons you start out with, you might be tempted to not invest any cash into their upgrades whatsoever. We would suggest not doing that. When you sell your older weapons, the price you get for them tends to cover most of the cash you've invested into their upgrades as well. So you can upgrade them as much as you want without having to worry about not having enough money later on for upgrades for the more powerful weapons. Gems and treasures. This is something you need to be really careful about and control yourself if you can. Don't sell gems individually, and don't sell treasures that haven't been inlaid with as many gems as they can be. The money you get for a completed treasure is significantly higher than what you would get for one that still has empty gem slots. So there's no sense in rushing to sell everything in your treasure inventory. Only sell completed treasures, or treasures that have no gem slots, and hang on to the rest. Also, keep an eye on bonuses for inlaying gems of different colors, because that can drive up a treasure's price by quite a bit as well. Side quests. Resident Evil 4 Remake has plenty of side quests for players to tackle, and while the sheer tension the game builds up might ward some players away from taking them on, the rewards are always worth the effort. Not only do they tend to be very well designed, but they also yield SPINELS, which can be traded in at the shop, and the items you get in return can be incredibly useful. Speaking of which, SPINELS. While spending money is obviously the primary way of making purchases from the shop in the game, a secondary way of getting useful items is by trading SPINELS that you get from completing side quests or killing certain special enemies. Be very judicious with how you spend these SPINELS though. Consumables like gunpowder will often be available for trades. But it's far better to save your SPINELS for weapons, weapon attachments, and other more permanent upgrades. The only consumable you should even consider trading in SPINELS for is the yellow herb, since that increases your max health. Treasure maps. One particular item that you can trade in SPINELS for that should always be a priority anytime they're available are treasure maps. There are treasures scattered around, and finding them without any guidance can be quite tricky, so always be on the lookout for treasure maps. The merchant will have a treasure map in stock that'll tell you the locations of them. Backtrack. Backtracking is always a crucial part of the gameplay loop in Resident Evil games, and that's very much the case with RE4 Remake as well. As such, you should always keep an eye on new paths that open up or new items that you get your hands on that will open up previously inaccessible areas or locked doors. Backtracking in these situations will always net you with valuable rewards without fail, including resources, ammo, gems, and treasures. ATTACHE case upgrades. At regular intervals, the merchant will have new items and stock for players to peruse, but the one that you should always keep an eye out for is upgrades for your attaché case. Your inventory space is fairly limited when you start off in the game, and given the fact that you're constantly adding new weapons, attachments, and items to your inventory, running out of space remains a very real possibility throughout the experience. As such, case expansions should always be the first purchase you make as soon as they become available. Armed enemies. Throughout the game, you'll often run into enemies who will come at you with weapons that they love throwing from a distance, from sticks of dynamite to torches to axes and more. Thankfully, by shooting their hand, you can make them drop that weapon, which, in the case of lit torches and dynamite, can be incredibly useful, because it ends up doing damage to them and any other enemies around them. Parrying. The knife parry is one of the title's gameplay mechanics, and it really does spice up the combat in meaningful ways. Unlike some parry mechanics in other games though, it's not a particularly difficult one to pull off. Parrying with just the right timing will obviously be more beneficial, because not only does it temporarily stun enemies and open them up to follow-up attacks, it can also occasionally do damage to them. If, however, you just spam the parry button and don't get the timing perfectly right, you'll still be able to block incoming attacks and avoid damage. Melee prompts. Do not ignore the melee prompts over the enemies. You might be tempted to just fire off a couple extra bullets to kill them, but if they have melee prompts popping up over their heads, it's far more effective to take the game up on that offer. Not only do the follow-up melee attacks do plenty of damage, they also save you a lot of bullets. Traps. The game throws plenty of threats your way, and not all of them come in the form of enemies. Often, there will be bar traps lying on the ground, waiting for you to spring them by walking into them. Certain enemies will also unleash attacks that you can evade by hitting QTEs. Make sure to keep an eye out for both of these things. Special weapons. In its sizable arsenal of weapons, the game will also let you purchase some special varieties that will dole out devastating damage, including the likes of a rocket launcher, magnum pistols, and more. This is sort of an unwritten rule in Resident Evil games, but we'll make it explicit for you. Don't waste their ammo on enemies. In fact, you should put those weapons in storage, so you're never tempted to use them. Only when you're in a fix should you consider going back to a typewriter and pulling those weapons out of storage to use in that situation. Red 9. One of the best non-special weapons in the remake is the Red 9 pistol, but you can't purchase it at the store. Shortly after the Del Lago boss, the lake will open up for exploration via a boat, and you'll find the Red 9 on a sunken ship at the center of the lake. Make sure you get it because it's a hell of a weapon and easily the best non-magnum handgun in the entire game. That's all for now. If you enjoy what you saw, please hit the like button. And if you're new to the channel, now is a great time to subscribe. We upload brand new videos every single day. After subscribing, don't forget to enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you next time, right here on Gaming Bolt.